Wonder Woman gave us heroes to believe in, but reality delivered tragedies the cast could never escape. Fame couldn't protect them, love couldn't save them, and the heartbreaking endings they faced will leave you stunned. Let's uncover their stories and honor the legacy they left behind. Lyle Waggoner as Steve Trevor and Steve Trevor Jr. You might think being the handsome face of Wonder Woman would guarantee a golden career, right? But for Lyle Waggoner, things weren't that simple. After leaving the Carol Burnett show, he risked everything to step out of the shadow of comedy and prove himself as a leading man. Hollywood, however, didn't fully embrace him the way fans did. He faced the sting of rejection more than once. Imagine being one of the finalists for Batman and losing to Adam West. That one decision changed the course of his career. Even in Wonder Woman, while audiences adored him as Steve Trevor, casting directors often saw him as just a pretty face, and he struggled to find serious work afterward. To survive, Waggoner took roles in light TV movies and guest spots on shows like Charlie's Angels and The Love Boat, but the big break he craved never came. At times, he had to swallow his pride, appearing in projects that traded on his looks rather than his talent. For an actor who wanted more, that hurt. The pressure pushed him to reinvent himself completely. Spotting a business opportunity on the Wonder Woman set, he launched Star Wagons, turning his frustration with acting into a multi-million-dollar enterprise supplying trailers for film productions. Ironically, it was outside Hollywood's spotlight that he finally found financial success. Lyle Waggoner played Steve Trevor in Wonder Woman in 1975 when he was 40 years old. He passed away in 2020 at 84 after a painful cancer battle, leaving behind a fortune of about $40 million. Richard Eastham as General Philip Blankenship. Now here's someone whose struggles were hidden under a polished exterior. Richard Eastham, the man behind General Philip Blankenship. Before Wonder Woman, Eastham was a singer with a powerful baritone voice. He had Broadway dreams and even starred in South Pacific, but when he shifted to acting, the transition wasn't smooth. Hollywood never quite knew what to do with him. Instead of lead roles, he was typecast as the stern face of authority, judges, military men, and villains. You saw him in films like Disney's That Darn Cat and McHugh with John Wayne, but always on the sidelines. For a man who once shared the stage with legends like Mary Martin, it was a bitter pill. Television gave him steady work, with appearances on Perry Mason and the FBI, but even there, fame remained elusive. While other actors broke through, Eastham often played characters audiences forgot once the credits rolled. The frustration of being a familiar face without a household name weighed heavily on him. On Wonder Woman, as Blankenship, he finally found a recurring role that gave him recognition. But by then, he was already 60, fighting to stay relevant in a youth-driven industry. It was a late victory, tinged with the knowledge that Hollywood had overlooked him for decades. Richard Eastham played General Philip Blankenship in Wonder Woman in 1976 when he was 60 years old. He died in 2005 at the age of 89 from complications of Alzheimer's disease, with a net worth of around $2 million. Beatrice Colen as Etta Candy. You remember her as the spunky, loyal Etta Candy, always ready to bring humor and heart into Diana's world. But Beatrice Colen's acting career was far from easy. Hollywood loved her for her comedic energy, but that same energy trapped her in typecast roles she couldn't break free from. She shined in Happy Days as roller-skating Marcia Sims, yet that early recognition became a burden. Casting directors wanted the quirky sidekick again and again, never giving her the chance to show her dramatic depth. For someone with real range, that constant pigeonholing was frustrating. Even in films like Mel Brooks's High Anxiety and the animated cult hit American Pop, her talent was often overlooked in favor of bigger stars. She kept working, but the projects that came her way rarely matched her abilities, leaving her feeling undervalued. The stress of Hollywood's limits took a toll. To cope with anxiety and rejection, she leaned on cigarettes and medication, habits that quietly destroyed her health even while she smiled for the cameras. Her sudden lung cancer diagnosis in 1999 shocked both family and fans, cutting her career short. Beatrice Colen played Etta Candy in Wonder Woman in 1976 when she was 28 years old, and she died in 1999 at age 51, leaving behind an estate of about $1 million. Norman Burton as Joe Atkinson. Not every actor who works steadily feels fulfilled, and Norman Burton was proof. When he appeared in Wonder Woman as Joe Atkinson, the stern IADC supervisor, audiences saw authority. But Burton himself saw a career full of near misses and heartbreak. His resume looked strong. Felix Leiter in James Bond's Diamonds Are Forever, a key role in the towering Inferno, even memorable appearances in Planet of the Apes. But despite these credits, Hollywood never gave him lasting stardom. He was always the supporting face, rarely the headline. That constant struggle ate away at him. For every major role, there were dozens of smaller parts in TV shows that kept him working but far from the spotlight. Method acting was his passion, yet he often felt the industry never respected the craft the way he did. The pain of being underappreciated collided with personal tragedies, and his later years were marked by fatigue and diminished opportunities. Though he continued teaching and working, the energy he once carried for acting seemed drained by disappointment. Norman Burton played Joe Atkinson in Wonder Woman in 1977 when he was 54 years old, and he died in 2003 at age 79 with an estimated net worth of $1 million. Carolyn Jones as Queen Hippolyta. She dazzled audiences as Queen Hippolyta in Wonder Woman, but Carolyn Jones had been fighting battles long before she ever stepped onto Paradise Island. Her career was a mix of dazzling highs and devastating lows that left her feeling both celebrated and forgotten. Jones broke through in the 1950s with Invasion of the Body Snatchers and earned an Academy Award nomination for The Bachelor Party in 1957. Hollywood hailed her as a rising star, but the pressure to live up to that momentum weighed heavily. Scripts became repetitive, and instead of major leads, she was often pushed into supporting roles. By the 1960s, she found a second chance with the Addams Family, creating the iconic Morticia. Yet even that success came with a cost. Audiences loved her so much in that role that she struggled to escape its shadow. For casting directors, she was Morticia first and an actress second, a box she could never break out of. In the 1970s, roles became harder to find, and she often accepted television appearances that didn't match her early potential. Her final years were especially cruel. Diagnosed with colon cancer, she continued acting on the soap Capitol while hiding her illness, working through pain in a wheelchair just to stay visible. Carolyn Jones played Queen Hippolyta in Wonder Woman in 1976 when she was 46 years old, and she died in 1983 at age 53, leaving behind an estate valued at around $1 million. Beatrice Straight as Queen Hippolyta. When Beatrice Straight stepped into the role of Queen Hippolyta in Wonder Woman, she carried herself with aristocratic dignity. But beneath that regal performance was an actress who had spent decades struggling to fit into an industry that never quite knew where to place her. She came from wealth and privilege, a member of the Whitney family, yet Hollywood didn't roll out a red carpet. While her talent was undeniable, earning a Tony Award for The Crucible, her stage background often made casting directors hesitant to give her big film roles. She was respected, but not always wanted. Her Oscar win for Network in 1976 should have changed everything. It was one of the shortest performances ever to win an Academy Award, a brilliant 5-minute explosion of emotion. But instead of opening doors, it left her typecast as the grieving wife, and major offers slowed to a trickle. She picked up occasional work, like the horror classic Poltergeist, but the truth was, she was working far less than her peers. For an actress trained among giants like Marlon Brando and Montgomery Clift, the lack of opportunity was deeply disappointing. Beatrice Straight played Queen Hippolyta in Wonder Woman in 1977 when she was 63 years old, and she died in 2001 at age 86 from pneumonia, leaving behind an estate of about $2 million. Roddy McDowall as Henry Roberts and Professor Arthur Chapman. You know that guy who always seems calm no matter what's happening? That's exactly how Roddy McDowall played Henry Roberts and Professor Arthur Chapman on Wonder Woman. Smart, measured, and quietly in control, he was the type of character you could trust to know what's going on, even when chaos hit. Watching him on screen, you might think the role was effortless. But behind the scenes, McDowall's own life in Hollywood was anything but. As a kid star in How Green Was My Valley and Lassie Come Home, he had the world at his feet, adored by audiences everywhere. But growing up in Hollywood is brutal. Suddenly, the boy everyone loved wasn't the fresh new face anymore, and doors started closing. The offers slowed, the auditions stung, and he had to prove he was an adult actor capable of carrying weighty roles. When he did get them, think Cleopatra, 1963, and the Planet of the Apes series, they came with hidden costs. In Cleopatra, studio politics overshadowed his performance. In Apes, the prosthetics made him nearly unrecognizable. It was an odd kind of success, brilliant work, yet invisible. And then there was the personal struggle. Hollywood in his day was viciously unwelcoming to gay actors, and McDowall had to hide his identity, living with the constant fear that honesty could destroy his career. Decades of smiles for the cameras masked an immense personal pressure. Roddy McDowall played Henry Roberts and Professor Arthur Chapman in Wonder Woman in 1977 when he was 49 years old, and he died in 1998 at age 70, leaving an estate valued at about $5 million. Tim O'Connor as Colonel Robert Elliott. Ever notice that one actor who always looks like he's running the whole show? That was Tim O'Connor as Colonel Robert Elliott on Wonder Woman. Stern, no nonsense in charge. The kind of guy who makes you feel the room just got serious. But behind the uniform and calm authority, O'Connor's career was a constant uphill slog. He got his start with Peyton Place, which gave him work, but also a curse. The show's critics dismissed it, and O'Connor was forever the serious authority figure. He wanted variety, nuance, and a chance to stretch. But Hollywood kept handing him the same mold over and over. Even appearances in Across 110th Street, 1972, and Buck Rogers in the 25th Century couldn't free him from the typecasting trap. The result? A career that was steady but frustrating. Fans recognized him, colleagues respected him, yet he often felt invisible compared to the stars getting awards and applause. It was a lonely kind of success, built on reliability rather than creative fulfillment. Later, he turned to directing theater. It wasn't just passion, it was survival. Smaller projects gave him control, a creative outlet, and a way to keep going when Hollywood seemed unwilling to offer more. He carried quiet disappointment for years, but never stopped working. Tim O'Connor played Colonel Robert Elliott in Wonder Woman in 1977 when he was 50 years old, and he died in 2018 at age 90. Leaving an estate valued at around $2 million. John Saxon as Captain Rattle. On Wonder Woman, John Saxon embodied Captain Rattle, a calculating, ruthless officer whose icy precision made him a formidable foe. Saxon gave the character an intensity that could stop a scene in its tracks, showing a natural magnetism for authority and menace. Behind the camera, however, Saxon's life in Hollywood was never as controlled as Rattle's military precision. Early in his career, Saxon shone in Enter the Dragon, 1973, alongside Bruce Lee, proving he could hold his own in high-stakes action. But success became a double-edged sword. Hollywood pigeonholed him as the tough guy or the foreign villain, rarely allowing him to show the subtlety he longed for. Films like Black Christmas, 1974, and A Nightmare on Elm Street, 1984, cemented his status, but also highlighted the typecasting trap that limited his opportunities. Saxon's professional frustrations were compounded by personal turmoil. His first marriage ended under allegations of abuse, adding a layer of emotional weight that mirrored the intensity of many of his on-screen villains. Despite the acclaim and fan adoration, he often wrestled with feeling invisible in an industry that celebrated youth and novelty over craftsmanship. In later years, he embraced the convention circuit, enjoying the appreciation of fans, but painfully aware of the roles he had to take just to stay relevant. Even as he worked in action films and television, the ache of what could have been lingered, a quiet reminder of Hollywood's harsh realities. John Saxon played Captain Rattle in Wonder Woman in 1976 when he was 40 years old, and he died in 2020 at age 84 from pneumonia, leaving an estate valued at approximately $1.5 million. Earl Boen as Chaka. Earl Boen's Chaka in Wonder Woman was sly, sharp, and instantly memorable, a character who commanded attention despite limited screen time. Boen brought a mischievous intelligence and understated humor to the role, but the confidence of Chaka belied a career fraught with challenges. While audiences would later recognize him in 9 to 5, 1980, and The Man with Two Brains, 1983, much of Boen's career was built on smaller supporting roles that offered security but little creative satisfaction. The industry appreciated his reliability, but rarely celebrated him as a star, leaving him to navigate the precarious balance between work and recognition. Alcohol added tension to his personal and professional life, straining his first marriage and creating a cycle of regret and fatigue. Even as he found a second home in voice acting, including roles in World of Warcraft, Monkey Island, and numerous animated series, the bittersweet reality remained. His face was less known than his voice, leaving his on-camera legacy understated. Yet Boen's commitment never wavered. He continued to work into the 2000s, lending depth and character to video games, television, and animation, showing that perseverance could create a different kind of immortality, one built on versatility rather than stardom. Earl Boen played Chaka in Wonder Woman in 1977 when he was 36 years old, and he died in 2023 at age 81 from lung cancer, leaving an estate valued at approximately $1 million. Bob Hoye as Marty and Norman. Ever notice that quiet guy in the background who somehow seems to survive every stunt unscathed? That was Bob Hoye as Marty and Norman on Wonder Woman. Brave, precise, and always steady, Hoy's characters gave the show a grounded presence amid the chaos of superheroes and villains. But off-screen, life wasn't nearly as controlled. Hoye carved a career in one of the toughest corners of Hollywood: stunts. He doubled for stars like Charles Bronson, Tony Curtis, and Tyrone Power, often putting his body on the line for every punch, fall, and horse jump. Films like The Outlaw Josie Wales, 1976, The Lone Ranger, 1956, and Bronco Billy, 1980, showed his daring, but they also came with injury, stress, and long hours without recognition. Balancing on the edge of danger for decades left its mark, physically and mentally. Even when he stepped in front of the camera, roles were sparse and often thankless. Audiences might remember him, but industry recognition rarely followed. It was a life of quiet heroism, invisible to most, except in moments where others got to shine on his back. Later, Hoy's personal health battled him as much as his career did. Lung cancer eventually took him in 2010, ending a lifetime of both cinematic and real-world daring. His dedication never wavered, but the toll of constant danger was undeniable. Bob Hoye played Marty and Norman in Wonder Woman in 1978 when he was 51 years old, and he died in 2010 at age 82, leaving an estate valued at around $1 million. Jared Martin as David Gurney and Leon Gurney. You know that actor who can play both charming and intimidating in a single scene? That was Jared Martin as David and Leon Gurney on Wonder Woman. Smart, adaptable, and always with a spark, his characters navigated tense situations with a mix of courage and calculation. But Martin's real-life career was far from smooth sailing. Starting with Dallas as Dusty Farlow, Martin earned steady work but also became typecast, often forced into recurring roles or supporting appearances on shows like The Fantastic Journey and War of the Worlds. Each audition was a reminder that Hollywood rarely rewarded versatility, no matter how many roles you could handle. Despite appearances in The Partridge Family, 1970s, Buck Rogers in the 25th Century, 1979, and Across 110th Street, 1972, recognition was fleeting, and the constant travel and uncertainty weighed heavily. On top of career pressures, his personal life added tension. Public divorces with allegations of emotional abuse left scars, and the constant scrutiny of television fame meant that every setback was magnified. Balancing art, family, and survival in a demanding industry was a challenge few could truly understand. Even with all that, Martin kept evolving, studying with Lee Strasberg, directing independent projects, and mentoring younger actors. It was a career of resilience, where passion often outweighed comfort or fame. Jared Martin played David Gurney and Leon Gurney in Wonder Woman in 1979 when he was 38 years old, and he died in 2017 at age 75, leaving an estate valued at about $1 million. Lynda Carter as Diana Prince and Wonder Woman. When you think of Wonder Woman, chances are you picture Lynda Carter spinning into that iconic costume. On screen, she was fearless and graceful, the kind of hero who made kids believe in truth and justice. But what most fans never saw was the emotional weight she carried while playing Diana Prince. The pressure of becoming a symbol while barely holding her own life together. Before she landed the part, Carter was nearly broke, singing in hotel lounges and scraping by in acting classes. Wonder Woman saved her career, but it also boxed her in. Hollywood adored her beauty, but often dismissed her talent, forcing her to fight for respect even while headlining one of TV's biggest shows. And once the spotlight faded, the struggles deepened. Her first marriage collapsed in bitterness. She faced accusations of manipulation from her ex-husband, and in the 1980s, she spiraled into depression and alcoholism. For someone the world saw as indestructible, Carter often felt anything but. Still, she clawed her way back. She found new life in music, starred in films like Super Troopers and Sky High, lent her voice to video games, and became a fierce advocate for women's rights and addiction recovery. Reinvention became her superpower, proving that real resilience isn't about never falling. It's about standing up again and again. Lynda Carter played Diana Prince and Wonder Woman in 1975 when she was 24 years old. In 2025, she is 74 years old, still active in entertainment and advocacy, with an estimated net worth of $10 million. Debra Winger as Drusilla and Wonder Girl. You might remember Debra Winger twirling onto the screen as Drusilla, better known as Wonder Girl, Diana's kid sister full of spunk and curiosity. She was a burst of youthful energy, a sidekick who could have become a staple of the show. But Winger shocked everyone when she turned down the chance to return. Even then, she sensed that too much TV could cage her in before her career had even taken flight. Her gamble paid off, but with pain attached. Urban Cowboy, 1980, launched her into the spotlight, proving she could hold her own opposite John Travolta. Yet with that fame came criticism. Directors whispered that she was too intense. Producers complained about her refusing publicity, and suddenly the industry branded her as difficult. Success didn't feel like freedom. It felt like a trap with new bars. Then came An Officer and a Gentleman, 1982. The movie gave Winger her first Oscar nomination and cemented her status as a star. But behind the curtain, she clashed bitterly with co-star Richard Gere and director Taylor Hackford, creating a storm of tabloid stories that overshadowed her talent. Instead of celebrating her triumph, Winger found herself exhausted by gossip and mistrust, her reputation more fragile than ever. The blow hit even harder with Terms of Endearment, 1983. Another Oscar nod, another massive success, but reports of tension with Shirley MacLaine turned award season into a circus. By the mid-1990s, Winger had enough. She vanished from Hollywood, rejecting scripts, interviews, and the machine that had once begged for her. She later admitted she felt burnt out, suffocated by an industry that demanded charm while punishing honesty. Debra Winger played Drusilla and Wonder Girl in Wonder Woman in 1976, when she was 21 years old. In 2025, she is 70 years old, still active in select projects and outspoken in activism, with an estimated net worth of about $8 million. They lived as legends but died in pain. Do you believe their tragedies were destiny or avoidable? Comment your answer, and make sure to subscribe for more.